Hello everyone, welcome to the last meeting of the week. You thought we were gone, but we were not gone. We were just somewhere far from this studio. Today is a very special episode for many different reasons. Number one, eventually we will take off the sunglasses, but we just wanted to make a statement. We are doing this podcast out of passion and force of will, not because of optimal conditions. End of the year, Saturday after a party, Saturday before a big party. So we don't know what's going to happen. Probably this was the most respectable thing that we could do in this journey, in this day. Second of all, we had big plans of continuity for this podcast, but the last 8 weeks, I should say, have been crazy traveling for myself, for work. The engine of this podcast, Filippo Sebastio, welcome to the podcast again.
Hello.
Normally you don't see him, but now he made sure that you see him clearly and loudly with that amazing jacket. So yes, we were both gone. Maybe we can take them off to feel a little bit better about ourselves. And the calendar was so tight that we didn't have hours enough to fulfill all of the calendar that we were trying to achieve. One of the ideas that we had in mind before wrapping up of this 2023 was to do a special episode that is sort of first of all, from my point of view, a tribute to Filippo, because he has been helping this podcast a lot, and I wanted to give him the full command of the podcast. And second, because I think it's a very nice exercise to do a little bit of reckoning of a reflection of what's going on here. So today the dynamics are going to change. Today the podcast will be guided by the new host, Filippo Sebastio. I give you the keys.
Thanks so much, and hello everyone. It's quite exciting to be in a driving seat for once. It's definitely not an experience that I want to repeat again, especially in these conditions that we found each other today. Like in between parties, in between headaches. No, wild headaches actually, hangovers. But I also want to say that I was wearing glasses just to give myself a little bit more of charisma and gravitas. But I really appreciate the fact that you say you want to honor me, but I think today this is about you. That's why we are reversing the camera, we are reversing the mic. And, it's a pleasure to conclude this year together as we started it, and to do a quick review and to explain a little bit better about this podcast. So, maybe the first question is, why this podcast? Why did we start? Why did you start this podcast? How the idea came up, and how did we get here? How did we get here?
I'm happy that we start with very, very, very simple questions. The reason behind this podcast is it's not a single thing. It's a number of things. First of all, I have been always fascinated by radio since the beginning of time. I think that's the clear origin. I have been in my house, so I was mentioning before that since I met my wife almost 11 years ago, all the time that we have been living together, we have pretty much not been in silence. We always speak. When I was a small kid, it was the radio speaking. It was 24/7 pretty much, radio going on. And I became fascinated by it. So I always wanted to do something with it, but I just didn't find the chance. And then this podcast storm took the media landscape by storm, and things became really easy accessible. That's number one. Number two, I think this is a medium in which you can communicate in a complementary way to whatever efforts you're trying to engage in your work life, especially because nowadays it's all about fast headlines, tweet, People don't read emails anymore. It's difficult to find yourself in a place where you can go deep and you can actually get to know something or get to know someone. So that was the second reason. I think the most important one, the one that actually was the deal maker, was the fact that living in Hong Kong, which is an special city in terms of the density of interesting people, I found that it was a lost chance living here and not trying to get to know amazing individuals that live close to me. But it is a little bit weird just walking up to people in a bar and just, asking them about their private life. So this was a perfect excuse. And then at the same time, narrowing it down, me dealing on an everyday basis with creative people, these architects, interior designers, but even, let's say, painters, photographers, chefs, DJs, it was a good excuse for me to establish a relationship with these, let's say, potential clients, business partners, in a way that is not transactional, in a way that you develop the relationship. So, and then of course there are many other reasons that you can actually bring up to the table. When you're actually thinking about doing this, you realize that by doing a podcast, you develop somehow eloquency that you didn't have before. Even though it's only 3 of us in this room right now, actually probably 100, 200, 300 people will see the video. So in the back of your mind, you're always thinking that you're speaking to a big audience, and that's actually a good skill to develop. So when you put the list of reasons that you have to do a podcast, the stupid thing is just not doing it. So
it's an interesting response, but also you were mentioning, you've probably forgot the most important one, which is you had a daughter.
I had a daughter, yes.
And this daughter, she takes, rightfully so, a lot of your time. You cannot go now partying and digging into the night and discovering interesting people in interesting places. So now you have to drag them in a special setting to continue those interesting discussions that you used to have.
Yes, it is true. It is true. It is crazy how actually the time slots change, the perception of time change. I remember when in 2020, not so long ago, when I was going to Min on a regular basis. For those of you who don't know Min, because you don't live in Hong Kong, it's a club in an industrial building, super nice music, managed by nice people. For those of you who live in Hong Kong and don't know Min, shame on you. And for us, every time that I was going out, 2, 3 a.m. was like halftime. Pretty much.
Exactly.
It is. That's what it was. Then suddenly, midnight, 1 a.m. started being very late, and you feel detached from a certain, let's say, circles and the chance to meet new people. So this was, in a certain way, a substitution of that social life that I chose to lose, because at 7 a.m. my daughter is yelling, "Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!" So at least I get this moment with people, and I keep enriching myself from other people's experiences.
And that's great. That's great. That's great for you. That's great for me that I tagged along, and it's been a pleasure seeing you leading this project with enthusiasm and just your adventurous spirit, which I really admire, and it was good to piggyback on it. So tell me, we have done how many episodes so far? 6 probably?
No, we have published 7.
7.
We have done 9, but we scratched 2 of them, including the first one that we did with you. Because I fucked up on the technical side of things. We had problems with SD memory cards. The thing about this setup is this is not a genius setup. We are not throwing rockets like Elon Musk or building a submarine. But there are a number of elements that multiply the possibility of fucking up.
Yeah.
And we did a few times. So yes, we did 7 published. This is the 8th. Plus 2 will be sold when we are famous in the VVIP fan gift box for Christmas 2025.
And give me a summary a little bit. What do you think of these first 6 episodes? Already had a podcast in the past, which was, I think, was about meeting interesting people. But this is your first more probably professional endeavor, no? This is the first time you are taking these, I don't want to say more seriously, but definitely more professionally from one side. What do you make of this experience so far?
I think you're being very generous by naming this professional. I think we will love to, we aim to get as close as possible to professional, but let's say I think maybe we're 65% there. The idea of the podcast is not recent. I have been fascinated by also all of the YouTube ecosystem, all of this new wave of content creators that were communicating things in different formats. When I quit my previous job in 2018, I believe since summer 2018, I have been frantically watching vlogs and videos and podcasts. And I always thought this is the perfect tool to have in my box to be able to communicate and become a better professional and to have more success. So I have been doing, let's say, approximations for the past 5 years. It is, again, it's not a hard exercise, but it requires a little bit of commitment when it comes to time. It requires a little bit of investment when it comes to equipment. So during COVID 2020, every one of us, suddenly we found ourselves with time in our hands, especially in Hong Kong. And I did the first 7 episodes of a different podcast called Cool People. It was a very naive name, but the idea was pretty much the same. The difference between this and that, it was that the equipment was very minimal. I was doing things with 3 iPhones. I was editing it by myself a posteriori. It was all a little bit, let's say, way too amateur. So during COVID, I learned a lot in a very short time, but then things started getting busy again, so I had to put it to the side. And then in the last year, a couple of hours per week, progressing every month just a little bit, I started putting together what we have now, which is not definitive. I mean, I'm going on Christmas with the sole objective of improving and finding better ways to enhance this space, to improve content-wise, to put a couple of more equipment elements in order to keep on, let's say, always learning. These 8 episodes have been a super amazing learning curve. I think, by the way, the fact that you're here has doubled the speed in which we improve. I owe you big time, and I thank you profusely for this. It's been nice also to spend time with you, frankly. And I think that if we have to actually look at ourselves in the mirror, from the first episode to Antimos, because Stefano Tordiglione, you were a very tough fucking guest, so I don't count you in. We always improved, and every episode was better than the one before. And I think that even though it's a little bit frustrating to have been forced to stop in that pace of 1 per week, it has given me a time to reflect on everything, and I believe that the next 52 that we will do next year will be much, much better.
Excellent. Well, we're good, right? So you, we just started this, right? It's been, you mentioned we published 7 episodes. Is there any specific moment or specific interview I don't know, you were particularly impressed, or you learned something that was quite surprising to you, and also how now to conduct a podcast, how to interview people?
Yes. I think the learning has been incremental from one to the other. It would be a little bit unfair to say this guest, is better than the other. I do have my favorites. If I have to choose my favorites, probably number 1 would be Antimo. Maybe because subconsciously the character is bigger, has a bigger name, bigger exposure. I think it was a very nice conversation. My second favorite was Shivang, probably. But in these two cases, um, I think I was a little bit looser, a little bit more relaxed, more at ease. I think that actually conditions the whole thing. What I have I have learned the most, again, and I think this is an ongoing development, is the balance between having an idea of a script of where you're going to take the conversation, but being totally flexible and being at ease in actually taking detours and going to places where you wanted to arrive maybe half an hour later, 1 hour later. I think developing this flexibility is extremely good. Everyone has been good, I have to say. Roman, Amy, Anna, who is sitting behind you. I think probably, let's say, from a podcast technical point of view, yes, Antimo and Shivan were my two favorites. From a personal point of view, probably my favorite was Anna Palmer, because I've known her for 5 years, but I discovered a lot of things from her because we actually got to sit down in the podcast. These two things were the best. I think I am learning how to be a little bit clearer when it comes to commanding and guiding, and learning what parts of the format work better and what parts of the format work a little bit less. I have discovered very clearly one of my defects, which is that sometimes if I don't have the full command of things, sometimes I go into panic mode and I don't know how to continue. And that's the only moment in which I feel a little bit uncomfortable. But that also, for example, happens in business meetings. That, you are with a couple of colleagues and you're taking the narrative in a certain way, and someone actually gets there before. And I think it's good practice for everything. I think it's good practice. We will get better and better. On top of that, being natural when having this conversation, I think is the secret. I think the podcast is a reckoning moment for the guest, for the host as well, as vice versa, for the guest, but of course, but mainly for the host. Because when you expose yourself to such a long format, you cannot hide between a persona. You really need to be proud and comfortable in your own skin. And this is something that, again, I needed to develop, and I need to develop more and more. And I want to think I'm doing that.
Excellent. You were also, we were talking about trade-offs, right? Being flexible while having a script, which is a skills that it's amazing for all people in all industries to develop. But there is another trade-off that I want to talk with you about. And it's a trade-off between being sincere and authentic and having a commercial podcast that is going to be on YouTube probably forever until they don't take you down. Where do you draw the line? Have you ever felt like, okay, maybe I can't really be as sincere or as authentic or tell the whole thing as I want it because I need to self-censor myself a little bit?
First of all, I hope that one day they take me down, because that means that we have gone to a point of extreme success and to a point of extreme freedom. It is actually very interesting, the question that you asked me before, because it is true that even though I am genuine, this is me, but this is a part of me. But this is the part of me that not only I showcase in the podcast, this is the part of me that I showcase on my professional life, that I showcase even with friends, or let's say with acquaintances. I save the controversial part of Fernando for very intimate circles, and if I don't show it off in my professional life or in the podcast, it's because I don't feel safe enough to be able to say, like Elon Musk the other day, go fuck yourself, Bob Iger, and feel okay with it. Because I don't feel financially independent. I depend on having a job, so I need to trim down some of my opinions or even shut up. So the reason why probably here I adopt an extremely friendly, or I try to adopt an extremely friendly without any confrontational approach, is not because of the podcast. It's because I do that on an everyday basis. I would love to be able to not give a crap and to actually sit in front of someone and ask tough questions. However, the podcast up to this point has been an exercise of friendship with the person that sits in front of me. I'm not a big name that manages to sit down in front of Vladimir Putin or Zelensky or Xi Jinping or Pedro Sanchez. These are all friends, so I want them to have a good time. This is also creating a way to create the connection. If tomorrow I have here John Lee, which I had a couple of dreams for actually me interviewing John Lee in this studio.
Lucid dreams.
Lucid dreams.
Okay.
I would definitely ask him a couple of tough questions, especially when it comes to management and long-term view. But I'm not at that point yet.
Are you of the school of thought that there are no taboo topics? Would you, if you had all the money in the world
Yes.
and all the platform in the world, no one can take you down, would you talk about all topics with all people, or where do you draw a line?
That's a very good question. So intuitively, I would say yes. But then there is an exception. One of the radio stars in Spain that I admire the most, which is Federico Jimenez Los Santos, and this will probably make a lot of people unsubscribe from my channel. He says that he doesn't interview criminals. He doesn't interview terrorists. And there is a sort of a point to that. I understand that there is a point to that. However, if you do it in a way in which you actually try to understand the human element, while stating that you are strongly against what they're doing and you actually condemn and criticize, and even confrontationally, I think it's good to speak with everyone. I like to speak with everyone, especially with people that are different than me. People that are like me, it can get a little bit boring.
It's very interesting. Well, actually, one of my most favorite podcasts is a podcast that was written and produced by a convict, a criminal in jail. He was a famous bank robber in Italy, and then he had all this redemption. He's still in jail today, but he tells all his story, and how he ended up in this situation. So I think there is something to learn from everyone. That's what I meant. But going back to the podcast, this is a podcast about also, probably we haven't really mentioned that much, but it's a podcast about design and lifestyle.
Yes, I've been thinking about this very recently. Everyone, when you're doing a podcast, everyone is asking you, what is the podcast about? And it would be a little bit, I would be a little bit too full of myself to just say, it's about me talking to people. When actually, really, that's what it is. It happens that I'm super interested in people from within the creative realm of things. And on my everyday life, I talk to architects, I talk to interior designers, and I love to know more about what these people do. So it only makes sense that, one of our goals is to have 40-50% of the guests that belong to that part. If I only choose people from, or invite people from, this industry, however, it can become a little bit endogamic. The questions can get a little bit similar from one episode to another episode. And I find that there is a lot of, if we enlarge the scope to creative people in general, then we can bring in a lot of super interesting people. Again, chefs, DJs, photographers, lighting designers, music producers, anything you want. And then, of course, because there are certain people that are super interesting, but they have chosen boring jobs, like I have in the past. I want to give myself the freedom to just invite whoever the hell I want every now and then, just to have a nice conversation. As long as people are interested, I'm super happy with the activity. This, I don't know if we are ever going to become a little bit rich because of this podcast, but I think that I don't focus on the potential audience when I do this exercise. If there is only 10 people that watch the interviews, I'm happy. Now I'm talking to you, and the best thing is that I'm gonna take away is that we spend some time together. We listen to ourselves in the headphones. We have now a cup of something, and later we'll have a beer, and that's the most important thing. The rest is just a given. It's just a gift.
What's your vision for next year? So this was our beta version.
Yes.
You had an idea how you wanted to start, and you were very much aware this is the moment for you to, I don't want to say practice, but like definitely to get a sense of it, to understand also yourself. What are your limits? What are you good at? How can you improve? Okay, that phase seems to be done.
Yes.
Now next year, we start with a new season. You can say, what's your vision for that?
I think I thought at the beginning that the difficult part would have been to set up everything from a technical point of view. Where actually the difficulty was the operational part of the podcast. Actually, finding the time not only to do the podcast but to invite the guests, research the guests, have an idea of what you're going to talk about, and I found myself with, let's say, some calendar hiccups. I was supposed to do certain events in July, and in September they all got pushed down to November, and then suddenly I was away for 6 weeks, and operationally I was not prepared to actually keep the frequency of publications. My goal is to publish once per week. Maybe we take the exception of Easter. Maybe, I don't know, we will close down in July because people are on the beach. No one is listening to this. But for me, the key improvement will come when operationally we tackle not only the podcast as a thing that we need to improvise from week to week, but as something that I plan on a semester basis. That's one thing. In these past 2 weeks that we were off air, I had a lot of time to think also about the potential of this format. And one of the things that I found was that the city that we live in is a little bit dysfunctional. It's like, West Berlin and East Berlin in a sense. We live the expat world and we live the local world. And actually, when I came to this realization was when they did the Tatler Gala in Macau.
Were you invited?
I wish I was. We will be in a couple of years because of this podcast.
That's our end goal, I guess.
Yeah, that's our end goal. We need to be, rubbing shoulders with famous and fancy people, but we are not there yet. However, these fancy people to me are totally unknown. I saw many pictures of this guy, obviously Chinese, and he was obviously, big shot. And I'm like, who the fuck is this? And I looked him up, and he had 20 million followers. And I realized, well, there is a universe of people, of celebrities, of Hong Kongers that I don't even get to. I don't cross paths with. So my goal for next year is to reserve within the characteristics that I mentioned for guests. I want to invite 40-50% of local Hong Kongers. It would be a very romantic, very nice goal to be able to bridge the gap of the two sides of the bay, Kowloon, Hong Kong Island, because I think, let's say, Kowlooners, or let's say people that live in new territories, they don't know very much about what's going on in the expat world, and vice versa. So it would be very nice. I'm going to try to actively bring people that I know nothing of.
And it's true, because Hong Kong has this. Hong Kong is not in a city that has an expat community. The way Hong Kong was built as an expat community, like when you look historically, it's always been an international place. So we are not guests here. We are the inhabitants of this place. We are citizens of Hong Kong. However, there is a gap with the local Chinese population, cultural gap, And it's always a joy when you manage to close that wedge, when you manage to get closer, know a little bit better. So I really think that's quite an inspiring goal.
There is always a hippie thing, a hippie spirit of wanting to talk to someone else that you don't know. And following on that, I think nowadays we see a lot of division. Social media was supposed to bring people together, but because of how good we are at segmenting different types of people, different classes, different even, let's say, ideology-driven people. So we are creating separated compartments of the population. And I think that this, if you actively try to bridge gaps between these compartments, I think then you can feel like you're doing something purposeful.
Fed, we touched upon that just a minute ago, but you have to be honest here, so don't just give me a bullshit answer.
Okay.
It's like in 3 years' time,
Yes.
how will you measure success for this podcast? And in 3 years' time, how will you also measure failure for this podcast?
Okay. I want to have 100,000 subscribers.
So it's
You wanted the direct answer?
I didn't mean it to be like so quantitative, but I'm glad that you have a view, like a number in mind.
I don't even know if it's achievable. But I thought, okay, first end of 2024, I want to have 1,000. End of 2025, I want to have 10,000. I want to 10x every year, and 2026, I want to have 100,000.
And how this number translates for you in your life when you have your lucid dreams, when you think about the success, how do you envision that in your mind? Tell me, what do you see? Is it you at the Tatler convention or at Tatler Board, or how would you? Because these are only numbers, but
yes.
How do they translate in your
mind? These are only numbers, and I don't care about the number per se. I care about what the number means. I think if you get to the point of having 100,000 subscribers, then you get to a point in which you can, number one, you can start implementing very interesting strategies to actually keep on growing. You become commercially interesting for people that maybe can advertise on, or brands that can collaborate with you. And it might give me the chance to do a job that let's say, to have an activity that I feel 100% fulfilled with. I love what I do. I think I'm kind of good at what I do. Not the best, because you need to always have a little bit of competitive tension.
Do you want to mention what you do?
I work for I sell stuff. I've been selling interior design materials, high-end Italian ceramics for the best part of 6 years. Then I did furniture. Now I work for one of the best decorative lighting companies in Italy, and I look after Asia Pacific market. And it's a very interesting job, don't get me wrong, but that I do because in life you need to be productive and you need to be efficient, and I have a family and I have things to do and I have to pay the bills. But this is if the dream, if we get there, then I would start doing something that for me is never work. It's always fun. And I think to, let's say, try to find escape velocity from Earth's gravitational field. I think that would be the ultimate dream, to be able to say, okay, I do whatever the fuck I want, whenever the fuck I want.
So independence. That's what you look.
Yes, but I know that that's probably an overly ambitious goal. I mean, out of everyone that is doing podcast, maybe 0.1% get to that level, and a lot of people that do podcast professionally. And if you take out Joe Rogan and Alice Cooper, the rest have other activities, so it's never enough to have a podcast. But at least it opens you different doors.
That's interesting. Do you daydream a lot?
Yes, every day.
Are you a big daydreamer?
All the time, yes.
Is that the creative force behind this podcast, you think?
Yes, definitely. I daydream sometimes in a more naive way. That is, when I imagine myself at 55 cruising on a small boat, small but expensive, in Ibiza, having a not so luxurious but luxurious enough house also in Ibiza. That's let's say the most frivolous part of my daydreaming. Most of the time though, I am thinking about how do I improve this, how do I improve that, how should I do this. Imagine when I have Alan Zeman here in the podcast, what would I ask, what wouldn't I ask? And I visualize, not on purpose, I have been visualizing things before it was new age type of guru shit that you learn on the internet. I have been doing that all my life. When I was 13, I imagined myself scoring at Santiago Bernabeu, playing for Real Madrid at least 150 times, and I was
I
not
still do that today.
and I was not even a Real Madrid fan, by the way, which was weird. I would love for a psychologist to actually analyze me on this, because I've always preferred Barcelona than Real Madrid, and I never saw myself with a Barcelona shirt, always with a Madrid shirt. I don't know what the fuck that means.
What are your main sentiment or feelings that drive you to embark in this type of adventure? And I'm not just saying, you already told me why you're doing it, but
Yes.
I'm more curious what is inside you in terms of feelings, in terms of moods. Really, is this a revancha? Are you trying to re-win against something that in the past? Is this a redemption? Is this a vanity? Is this ambition? How would you describe the feelings that really make you do this?
There is certainly an ingredient of ambition towards being different from the mass. There is also in parallel a feeling of insecurity. I have always believed that if I don't keep on pushing to learn something new, to do something new,
You'll fall behind.
I will fall behind. And I will fall into this, let's say, middle management trap, in which you live the opposite of freedom. You live at the expenses of your big manager or whatever. So what I'm doing in my life, that's one of the key driving factors to try to improve and progress. So how do I translate this? Okay, from 8 to 6, I try to do the best in my job. So I become CEO of, with like Fantozzi, with a chair with a human skin.
That's quite a reference for our Italian audience.
If you haven't watched Fantozzi and you don't understand the joke, it's your fault. So you should watch the Fantozzi movies. I will put the references in the. My producer is laughing her ass off. We have a substitute producer, by the way, today. I never thank her, Katerina. Thank you very much. We'll go back to you later. So yeah, that's that. And so, and in the same way that you try to improve on, let's say, the orthodox job path, trying to have these side projects, it's also a way to try to improve and gain an edge. I've been away for 6 weeks and I've done thousands of, not thousands, but more than 100 presentations easily. I'm sure that this podcast, the way I'm getting used to, building up the narrative, the script, finding a way that is engaging, has helped me do that. Before I would be super nervous when I had to do a presentation in front of 15, 20 people. Now I just cannot give less of a fuck.
So what I take away from your answer is really the reason you're doing this is for survival.
It's all survival, yes.
It's all survival, yes. And in part ambition, in part fear.
Yes.
Which is a good combination, it's a good engine. I mean, the only reason why I sometimes work a lot, it's fear. So I think it's a component it's a component that we accept: fear of failure, fear of losing what you have, but also fear of not making it to this goal that
yes.
you have in the future.
Yes, it's fear, and I think that's the common denominator of many people that are overachievers.
Mm.
It's actually the fear of falling behind.
Mm.
And that fear leads to a little bit of sadness that then
Mm.
gets transformed into anger.
Mm.
But it's a productive anger.
Mm.
So you always are trying to fight
Mm.
to let's say take one step ahead. And again, this podcast is good because it's fun, but it's good because also there is a chance that for 1 in a million that we actually make it. So why not try?
This ambition, does it
Mhm.
make you feel unsatisfied in your everyday life, or would you say it's a healthy ambition? Or because there is always the risk of setting always this very ambitious target to become a CEO, to have a tiny but very expensive boat that it's cruising around
The
Ibiza,
Mediterranean,
the
yes.
Mediterranean. I mean, these are beautiful goals, but they can be challenging, and if they are not attained, they can lead to some dissatisfaction.
But ambition, there is not good or bad ambition in my opinion. There is ambition with how to say gradient of grace in between. No, I think you can be extremely on a very good place and have, let's say, 90% good healthy ambition, but there will always be that 10% that is a little bit unhealthy. I think it's just the price you have to pay. It's the price you have to pay. It is true that probably I would be healthier if I didn't spend so much time in thinking about the future. If I could just relax. Sometimes I find people that you see them and you believe when they go home at 6 p.m. or even 5 p.m. and their day is over and they don't think about it anymore. And I'm like, I could never be like this. I think that's a trait that will accompany me for the rest of my life.
When we started this podcast, I like to say we, even though
We,
you're
yes.
this is we acknowledge that and appreciate the fact that you are the main lead here and I'm tagging along. But I like to also refer we because in the tiny part I like to be part in this project.
It is an important part.
But we talk about the importance of doing something with purpose.
Yes.
Purpose is probably it's not just mindlessly doing task, but doing tasks that fulfill you.
Yes.
There it's a void inside of us that needs to be fulfilled with actions that are meaningful for us. That when we are doing the actions, we don't look at the time.
Yes.
There's time that every time you chat with someone at the end, you always says, "Oh, look, we've been talking for 1 hour and a half. Did you notice that?" But also at the end of it, you go home and you feel like, I feel satisfied. There is something like, that was a good chat. There was something very positive. I can go home, and I'm tired and I feel good.
Yes.
So tell me the meaning of purpose for you. Tell me, because this is probably how I see it, but tell me how purpose fit into this project for you.
This is actually a very personal question, and I'm going and I don't think I've opened myself to a lot of people in this regard. I have been. I just mentioned I daydream all the time, and I'm an idealist in many ways. But I have made stupid, how to say, utilitarian choices for the last 18 years of my life. Since I started into the I went to the university. I didn't choose aerospace engineering because I was passionate about it, and that was the big mistake. That was the biggest mistake because it was something that was the workload was so high that try to accomplish it without the passion and the motivation made it 3-4 times more difficult, very painful at times. And then I think from that moment I have been trying to regain back the reins of my life, literally. Because of course then if you have certain ambitions and you make a very big systematic mistake as this one, Then on one side you say, okay, I want to start producing because I want to start having a certain amount of money, so I can invite a certain type of girls to dinner, and I can have a family, and I can go on trips, and I can go to Ibiza, and I can go to this and that place. So you want to be functional for society.
That's the role of money in your life.
That's the role of money in my life.
Maximize your income to be able to.
It has been one of the motives, and probably it was the wrong one. But then when you're on the wheel, getting off the wheel is extremely frightening. And what the fuck? Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Are you really gonna risk everything once you have an objective, good setup with wife, daughter, living in Hong Kong in a nice apartment, with a good job, with a boss that puts his trust in you? I know I'm privileged, so it's very difficult to get off that wheel. If you ask me, Fernando, do you feel passionate about what you do? The reply is probably not. And a lot of people might be surprised with this, because, for example, when you see me on one of the key weeks of my year, may that be Milan Design Week, for example. No, I go there and I do 35, 40 meetings in 1 week. If you see the level of energy that I have, no one can believe that I'm not doing it out of passion. But I have developed a way to switch on the high activity mode, because it's just productive. The only one that knows that I'm just doing that, forcing myself to do it, is myself. When I start doing this podcast, as in the same way as when I was doing some other passion projects, or spending time doing sports, basketball, climbing, something else, the great part is that the motivation that I get from this couple of hours then passes on the rest of my day. So I feel more motivated selling lighting because I'm doing this podcast for passion. Having that purpose, even in only one activity in life, I think permeates to the rest of the everyday life.
Yeah, but I also believe that the narrative of do things with make your work your passion, I think that's an incorrect narrative. I mean, I think that's a narrative that comes from our society. The society is based on image, and we all need to tell to each other, I mean, I'm so passionate about my job. And what do? I sell sinks, and then I don't know, and then I sell, I collect garbage on the side of the road. No, I mean, I think the thing that you said, I think, is important. You need to appreciate what you do, and you need to, in the moment that you put effort and you see results, you also enjoy what you do. But passion, often it's something different.
Yes.
Passion, it's often like what it stimulates the creative process within you, where you have ownership, what it's fully ingrown within you. And that's not necessarily something that you find on the job market. I'll tell you, as I work in sustainability, and people think, you must be so passionate about sustainability. Most of the day, I'm doing painful data reviews and coding, and things are breaking down, and I'm panicking. Honestly, there is not so much passion in that. I enjoy the topic. So I want to also reassure you that the narrative about passion is mostly a narrative that people force upon themselves than the true belief. That's how I see it.
No, it's I agree with it, and I think being mature and being an adult is realizing this, that there are certain things that suck. It's like, I was interviewing for a job 11 years ago, and they asked me, Fernando, probably you will have to fill up Excel spreadsheets with data and analyze them. Are you okay with that? And for me, that question was insane. It's like, I mean, do I like it? No, but it's irrelevant to the fact that I'm going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot of things in life that you just have to do, like brushing your teeth. It's never a good exercise unless you are in a festival at 7 a.m. It's very soothing. But normally it's not. It's like, now I have to go brush my teeth and floss.
Yeah.
You just do it. Period. And nowadays, it is very easy to trash the new generation, and I try to avoid it. But it's true that we have condemned them. I'm talking about the Gen Zs into believing that this passion is the only thing that you need to look for.
No.
You need to look for living experiences, and sometimes opening new doors require for you to go through a little bit of shit. Having a shitty boss every now and then, facing with with an asshole client every now and then, it's super necessary.
But also be smart about it. Like, if you are passionate about painting and you want to be a painter, but you suck at it, and you really want to make that your job, and be dissatisfied with, I don't know, probably not with the quality of the work, but you're never going to be recognized for it. And so recognition, it's very important. And I think you, as many other people that are thriving in their jobs, they are able to do it because even though it's not the passion of your life, probably design is not yours, probably data, and it's not necessarily the passion. We made the best out of it, and we decided, okay, we're gonna thrive in this. We're gonna do this with our best effort, and we're gonna enjoy the things. We're gonna enjoy setting a strategy, whether it's for you to grow the business or to present new products. You're always gonna put a passion. I don't want to use the word passion, but you're gonna always put a lot of effort in it, and that's gonna give you satisfaction. Passion is gonna be then in your free time what you love doing.
If sorry, normally it's you doing the questions, but now I'm curious. I want to ask you, if you had all the money in the world, you had all the independence in the world, you could say fuck off to everyone in the world, what would you do?
It's a good question. I don't think I have an answer for that. I mean, it's so hypothetical. I definitely think I would try. I mean, I watched this beautiful documentary. It's so silly, but it really touched me so much. And it's a documentary about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Of all the people that I never thought I would be touched by Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he said something beautiful that it's really be helpful.
Yes.
And for me, that it's really that what I wanted to be, and that's what I try to do actually in my everyday life and in my free time. I want to try to, and one proposition, probably I don't still yet do it, but one proposition is I want to be helpful. If I had a lot of money, I would try to be more helpful to other people, and there is nothing that would make me feel more helpful than giving opportunities to other people.
Yes. I have a less of a altruistic reply.
Whatever
But
feels your life.
I would be doing this podcast. I asked myself that, and again, daydreaming. I would love to write, let's say, literature, but also mainly do movies. But I would keep the podcast as something ongoing every week. I would probably double up the number of podcasts. Instead of once per week, I would do twice per week.
And if you had all the money in the world, you were doing this, please hire me and pay me very well, because you'd be like.
We will. We'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm always also very conscious of time, even though I enjoy a lot our conversations. But I have two hypothetical questions.
We are very okay with time.
Okay.
You need to. We did take a long break, so it's not even that.
Okay, got it. The first question that I have: you have a beautiful daughter. I think she's 4-year-old right now, maybe 3. She's 3.
3.
She's gonna turn one day into a teenager. She's gonna Google your name.
Yes.
On YouTube. She's gonna find. Oh wait, my father was doing a podcast with this weird Italian, and they were living in Hong Kong. What do you want your daughter to think and take away? How do you wanna be seen in the eyes of your daughter when she's gonna be a 17, 18-year-old rewatching these episodes?
That's a very good question. First of all, so I think all of these episodes are extremely sincere. I would love for her to see a very sincere version of her dad. I would, but not only through the podcast, but also on my interactions with all my interactions with her. I would love to be able to guide her towards a very strong curiosity for discovering new things and learning and studying. And if I can inspire her or pass her this fire that I have to just not to be an average person. So instead of just spending my hangover watching Netflix in the sofa, just being here talking to someone, and that going an extra mile and let's say spending a little bit of money from your pocket into doing something that fulfills you, being able to have having this will to live. If anything, I would love her to perceive this message. I am surrounded by people who can actually reply to this definition, to respond to this definition. Anna Palmer was one of them. We were talking about it yesterday. I like people that grab life by the horns and dare to take difficult steps. And as much as there are 100,000 million podcasts nowadays, in percentage of the real population, they're just it's just a tiny percentage. When you do this podcast, you expose yourself, and you need to make a very big leap into not caring actually what other people are going to say about you, because I know that a lot of people are going to say a lot of things about this, and having that force to overcome this fear, if I'm able to pass her this little part of the subliminal message of just the existence of the podcast, I would be super happy.
There's a beautiful sentence in Napoli that says, a way of saying a sentence, that fearful people, they don't get laid with beautiful women. If you always scared people, they don't get laid with beautiful women.
I agree 100%.
And I guess this is key, like shedding that sense of embarrassment, fear, sense of that you might be exposure, and that sometimes people may interpret it like sense of ridicule, or I don't know how to put it, but that sense of embarrassment, perhaps not overcoming that, it's what really makes you do, I think, extraordinary things. I think already having set up all these studios, getting interesting people to come and chat with them, it's something already extraordinary. It's not something that it's ordinary, and you need to acknowledge that in already a box that you can tick.
That is true.
Things that you have achieved.
I think that medal we should put, let's say, put on our jackets, because it's something that I don't know if I ever told you, is that I have panicked for evenings in a row about the potential outcome, the aftermath of just exposing myself so much. I was like, Katerina knows this. I was super scared. I'm like, what if people think this, people think that, in which type of position I'm gonna find myself in, even in future job. Is someone gonna hire me because of this, or someone is probably not gonna hire me because of this? And taking the step of actually saying, okay, I'm gonna walk through the fire of the fear that I have. Just that exercise is strong. That one, I admit, is something I feel very proud of. To be able to be here, probably I don't know how many people will watch this episode, or the next episodes, or I don't even know the aftermath of this. Maybe I'm just fucking up my career, and I will end up being a barman on a chiringuito on a beach. But I'm ready to do this, because I love the phrase that you just said. In my life, every time I took a bold move, I suffered as hell, but then I prevailed, and I grew. When I was living in China, I went to Italy, and I had all the odds against me. At least I that was my perception at the time, and I passed it on. When rightfully or wrongfully, I left Atlas Concord, the ceramic company, with a very comfortable position. I was on an upward trend. It was a bold move. I paid for it, but then it allowed me to grow, take another 2 steps. If you don't put yourself out there, you never grow. When you see really successful people, and in this case, we need to focus on the people that were not old money. So let's say people who are self-made. they always take
Yeah.
these big steps.
But also, let's acknowledge the fact that it's easy to do it. Well, it's not necessarily easy to do it, but it's more justifiable to do it with in your profession, in your professional career. In your professional career, if you want to grow, you're expected to change job. And at one point, if you say, you know what, I'm gonna leave this company and I'm gonna try my own company, people will cheer you up, will cheer you. Like especially in Hong Kong, where the entrepreneurial mentality is so strong, people will celebrate you. But it's different to say, I'm gonna expose myself so personally with a podcast, because that's your personality. You're not putting like the businessman persona in front of you, say, "Oh, I'm setting up my company." Here, you are talking, you're sharing your idea, you're sharing your face. We could be surrounded, and we are not, but we could surrounded by people, not surrounded, but surrounded by people that says, "Oh, what you doing? Come on, what do you have to what is that you have to say, Fernando? What is that you have to? Instead, you are saying, I have things to tell. I'm not concerned about exposing my face. I'm not concerned about exposing my voice on the personal side. And I think this is what's making unique this adventure.
I am very concerned. I am very concerned. It.
I mean, I also want to say that so far you haven't said any in the past 7 episodes that you have not said a single word that could harm your career. Let's all.
You think so? Maybe today. Maybe today.
Not at all. Not at all.
Let me take one step to the side and be a little bit philosophical. Before my daughter was born, we were having some holiday in Varace in Liguria, where we spend countless hours toasting ourselves under the sun. My wife with a big belly, very big tan belly, and I found myself thinking, as I do all the time, no. And I go on vacation, I ask myself big questions. One of the things that conflict me the most is our relationship with social media and how we communicate who we are nowadays. We've gone to a point in which our privacy is something, I don't want to say non-existent, but it has different characteristics from what we thought of privacy 30 years ago. We are constantly sharing where we are, who we are with, what we are eating, what we are drinking, all the highlights of our life, and so on. The act of sharing our everyday life is, I think it's common to 80% of the population. Now, I think since this is not going to go away, or at least I don't think it's gonna go away, the only thing we can tackle it, or we can do it in a more productive way, is to be sincere about who we are. You can, I have this little long project in my Instagram, which is a project it's an anti-glamour project. Instead of just taking pictures of the fantastic steaks or fish that I eat by the seaside, and that I keep to myself, I take a picture of the hotel windows, of the view from my hotel window in every country I go, which is something very grey, very dark, very not sexy, and at the same time it's a way for people to really see where I live without a filter. The ultimate exercise to that is the podcast, is to actually just talking and being real for a certain amount of time. So I would love to believe that I'm also contributing to a little bit of, improving this medium that we built ourselves to communicate and to actually dwell, because we live on social media.
I push back against the idea that you posting picture about the windows of the places where you are, that's non-glamorous, because to the eyes of many is like, look at the fucker, he's still traveling, like, oh, where is he now? He's in Australia. Oh, it's in Korea. For like not us, because we realize that there's so much pain in traveling, and it's really that it's not so glamorous. But to the untrained eyes of the person who's never left their hometown, you are gonna look like a superstar.
Do you think?
But on the second note, I agree with the second point that you made. You are taking the leap from image
Yes.
to content, to and by content I mean, like, your honesty, of course, in specific
Yes.
parameter and delimiter. Of course, we cannot be fully honest and voice our darkest thoughts, but definitely you are breaking that barrier, the unidimensional barrier that Instagram has become.
Yes.
And you say, let's be on social media, but let's do it properly.
Let's do it properly. Yes. I'm actually writing down. I have one folder on my notes on my phone, and I have been filling it up for the past years of anecdotes that happened to me on the trips, and I will put them all together when I have enough of them under the name business class, trying to debunk the myth of glamour when people travel, because people say, yeah, you've been to Australia, oh so nice, you've been to Indonesia last week, oh so nice, and it's really not glamorous. It's very funny, but I use the flights to write and to actually let my mind unwind. That's when I find myself very creative. It's probably one of the best parts of traveling, is just finding myself alone in the fuselage of an aircraft, and big headphones, total silence, and just write. And one time I was trying to make memory of anecdotes, and then I was sitting on the exit row. I was flying economy class, and this lady, she didn't have a good digestion. It was obvious from the moment she opened the door of the toilet, and a wave of very fragrant
fragrance,
human debris reached my nostrils, and I said, "Fuck me, dead." I would love to have the talent to write what I'm feeling right now, and this would show people exactly how unglamorous business travel is.
Definitely. We talk about social media. One of the best thing that I could do was like preventing myself from posting, or like, unless it's a very big event like my wedding, I never post on social media, because posting, it's related to you're seeking reaction, which is giving you endorphin. But sometimes, you think you post something is great and you don't see any reaction. You say, okay, this is not working. Like, people don't understand how great is this thing. Or even worse, you get a peek in the life of people, and you have a feeling of fear you're missing out, or you feel like alone, abandoned. How do you deal with social media mental health for someone who's, I would say, more present than I am, definitely, on social media?
I have a very conflictual relationship with social media as well. I had very tough moments in the past 3-4 years. One of them, the clearest one, I think it was like maybe June 2020, when COVID just hit, and I was, and honestly, I didn't know if I wanted to continue with my own company or not. It was like, do I cut my losses and try to get a job while companies are still hiring, or do I continue on, fighting for the ideal and lose money every month, especially living in Hong Kong, where normally people are very well off, and are having a good time. And I think people just made more money, had more disposable income during COVID, so people were having a lot of fun. No, so in those tough moments for me, social media kept reminding me all the success that I was not having. And for long periods of time, I had to cancel my apps. I had to delete my apps, cancel my accounts, and just focus on my everyday life. Nowadays, I passed the darker period. I'm okay, even though I have a lot of things going on in my personal life that I wish I hadn't. I have a lot of positives that overcompensate. So I am okay as well. I do mute a lot of people. I do mute or unfollow a lot of people because, again, when I feel that, if I don't see you for 4 months and you post a picture of you having lunch, I don't know, in Costiera, I'm happy because that maybe that story, that post made me think of you for a second, and that's nice. If you're posting every day, the most insignificant things, and if you do it elegantly, I can be okay.
Yeah.
But if you do it following this bragging attitude that
Yeah.
many people have, then I need to choose to take a step away. And I'm not gonna stop talking to you,
Yeah.
but I'm just gonna try to get some distance.
It's quite impressive how vanity is really uh taking us taking us over, like with social media. Like, and I'm talking about vanity in display things that we have or experience that we are having, how much we are seeking recognition while we're doing it.
Yes.
And while we know, we are all very much aware that for 99% of the people, yes, that's their Sunday, but their Monday morning is probably as miserable as mine.
Yes.
It still create a sense of being envious.
Yes.
And unfortunately, what I notice in myself is that I can be envious of the life of the others, even when they're my best friends. And I had a certain point, I think it was 4 years ago, and somebody asked me, so why you're not on social media, Instagram so much anymore? I was like, because I'm too envious of your life. I told him so. Like, and he was like, how can you be envious of my life? I was like, I am. I mean, I'm so envious of a life of everyone. But at the same time, like quitting the race.
Yes.
It was like, okay, I need to show how good is my life. I don't need to show it to anyone. I'm very, I think, you know,
No, I look, honestly, I think social media and this is something super important to try to define, let's say, a good set of rules and norms for, elegance and politeness on social media. There is a good side, a good potential side to it. Sometimes, for example, I manage a very big region, and the ideal thing for me would be to be very close to the salespeople that sell my product everywhere. If I use Instagram to share my behind the scenes, so people they can relate a little bit more, it's super useful and it's super good because they understand that I'm a human being. That sometimes I get angry, I get pissed, but most of the time I'm well intended and have a normal life. So I show some things from work. I show some things from when I'm traveling, if I'm going somewhere, if I'm coming back home, etc., etc. I try to avoid, and this is very important, the bragging part. When I was a little kid, and again, not trying to trash the new generation, but yes, in a certain way, or not them, but their parents.
To trash them.
Yes.
Okay.
When I was a small kid, the main principles that my parents taught me was, if you have something that someone else doesn't have, don't rub it on the face. It's just not right. You're not winning anything. You're being very vain, and you're making someone else feel very bad. And that can be from if we buy you a pair of new sneakers, don't go around telling everyone, look at my shoes, they are new, they are shiny, because there might be a kid, and there will be a kid who cannot afford those shoes. If you go on vacation to the amazing 5-star hotel, don't put it out there. And this has been forgotten by everyone. One example was during COVID here in Hong Kong, there were times in which people could not travel because they were linked to a job. So they were in the city having a hard time, and some people that escaped and had the possibility to go to Thailand or to countries in which they were actually enjoying life a little bit more, no? And they were posting constantly about that one. And I was thinking, you should shut up. You should stop, because you're just making people feel bad. And the fact that you don't realize, for me, is a red flag.
But actually, you are bringing up a very good point, because I remember when having this discussion with my wife at the time, it was like, but it was the opposite. Shit was going down in Europe, and we were like free here in Hong Kong. We could like go to parties and so on. And I having a conversation with my wife, like, maybe we shouldn't post about these parties. Maybe we shouldn't post about this nice terraces and nice view where we enjoy still freedom, confined in our own city, but we're enjoying freedom. We're having drinks and we enjoy social life. We are not in a lockdown. maybe that's not great. And I think that's a very responsible use of social media.
Yes. But should we write a code of good manners nowadays?
I think so. And we should post it on social media.
We should post it on
And
social media.
when they're not doing it, we call them out. Like we join the call out culture. No, kidding. No. I think we talk about it. We are not big fan of call out culture. So no. But like I think it's worth to publish some guidelines. Even though I think this is our view, but it's not necessarily such a common view. A friend of a friend of mine had recently an anniversary, and I shared beautiful pictures on Instagram. And somebody asked them, "So how was your anniversary?" She was like, "Miserable." And they were like, "But you showed the beautiful pictures." And like, yeah, well, that's just social media. And for me, the the blatant reality of being part of the discussion was like, wow. Like I was so amazed about how much this is now ingrained with us.
Yes.
And then we just accept it, like the bragging part, even when behind there is not so much. But enough with social media. Maybe let's go back to the podcast.
Bye. I follow you.
I
How are you feeling being in command?
actually,
Do you like?
I love it.
Bravo.
Like a lot of time I have to, me. When you have an interview, I'm like there and trying to resist start to ask any question. Like, like if only I could ask one more question. So this is a great opportunity. Actually, before since we talk about owning, I have one last question. Then we go back to
Yes.
what's your relationship with money?
Very good. So
We should also ask your wife about it, then, just to validate the answer.
no, my relationship with money, I think it has changed in a bit. It hasn't been the same. When I was small growing up, my parents were one of many families that went from lower middle class to upper middle class. So I don't have any memory of actually not having something that was important. There was always the chance to travel a little bit, tiny bit. They were able to pay my university in Madrid, which for me it was a big step. We lived in a house. At one point, we even had 2 cars. So let's say we became a little bit comfortable, but there was always this post-war mentality in which my father, I remember him saying, "Fernando, in this house, for food and for books, there is unlimited budget, but there is not budget for anything else. Not stupidities, not PlayStation, no fancy sneakers or anything." So when I started making a little bit of money, I started trying to satisfy all of these small, vain desires. Okay, maybe in a very intense way. I didn't have a lot of.
You were compensating.
I was overcompensating. Yes, I was overcompensating. I want to believe that all of the time that I have been together with my wife, which is more than a decade now, it's a little bit frightening. I have learned from her, which she's an amazing saver.
Because she's Italian. Of course, Italians are great savers.
Really, you think so?
Yeah, we have
Italian women or Italian men?
Well, on average, we're agreeing, but
Italian
women, I think, are usually better savers than men.
Yes, I think that I have learned how to save. So now I have let's say I struck a balance of enjoying my life and saving.
Are you anxious about money?
No, I wouldn't say anxious. I worry about the freedom I will have in the future, especially because of the choices that I made in my life of living, the welfare system in my home country, which in theory would have meant a pension when I retire and so on and so forth. I have escaped that system, so now I need to build actively my retirement. So it is an important thing for me to continue saving.
How much do you think about money every day?
No. It's not a constant thought. It's not a constant thought. I do check my investments once every couple of weeks to
Okay.
make sure no one has stolen the money from my account.
Yeah.
I once every 3-4 months I look at the whole picture of
Okay.
where am I?
Mm.
Maybe have I spent too much money?
Mm.
Do I need to do some expense review? Not constantly, but periodically I check.
Would you define yourself as rich right now?
No. Not because I live in Hong Kong and I live by people that have much more than I do.
Okay.
It depends, of course, who you compare yourself to.
Mm.
If you compare, if 10 years ago someone told me that I was gonna have everything that I have now,
Mm.
I would have thought they were crazy because
Mm.
I have overachieved my goals or my imagination.
Mm.
But now I am in a very weird city in which there is a lot of money, a lot of people making crazy money. So even if you're well off, you are always, very conscious about the fact that you are not at the top of the pyramid.
What is wealth for you then?
No, wealth is freedom. Wealth is freedom. I don't want to. I don't want to be rich in the way of having a Ferrari or having a plane, even though a plane would be very, very convenient.
And
but
non-sustainable, Fernando. We are in an age of climate change. You can't say these kind of things.
but
You just fly with everyone else. I actually reduce your fly.
I can fly with everyone else. No, the ideal thing would be to even not to fly. I think wealth is having enough money to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna do today whatever I want to do on my terms, and you don't have to put up with people that you don't really like, that in the everyday life you put up with, because they are your colleagues, your bosses, your clients, whoever. So having more time to be able to be independent from, again, a company, from a colleague, from a government, because when you are rich, you really, let's say, whatever stupid policies your government makes don't affect you as much. And that's really my only goal.
Okay, that was a nice detour, interesting detour. I don't know, money, it's always something that fascinates me.
Money is very good, yes. And I don't know if a lot of people are sincere with themselves about their relationship with
I noticed that the other thing that people they don't open up about money. You don't know how much I make. I don't know how much you make. I don't know how much other people make. I mean, I have a sense, but I don't mind. And if you ask, everybody gets like, oh, well, yeah.
I have a sense.
Everybody gets a little bit frisky and not frisky. How do you say? A little bit embarrassed when you ask about their finances. It's like if it's something to be ashamed of, or something that you don't want to brag, or something that, neither. And I think we should be more open about talking about finances, talking about planning for the future. What you were saying about planning a pension and being transparent without being, of course. With a certain touch.
But then if you actually share too much about what you do, then number one, you can generate hard feelings against you.
It needs to be prompt. It can't be just I'm going around just sharing. This is my paycheck.
Yes, it might be a little bit a little bit negative for whoever shares, because imagine that you are very good at negotiating your contract and you have a very good salary, which is maybe, I don't know, 30% more than your colleagues, and then your colleagues find out, and then you not only lose that relationship in a sense, because envy is one of the worst things and one of the most common things in humans, but also you're going to probably create problems for your company. So I think discretion when it comes to money and when it comes to voting, who you vote, is something that is not bad.
Let's agree to disagree on that one.
Okay.
We'll take it offline. One question about the podcast. We'll do one day a podcast about money, probably, and then one about politics. We'll be just barking at each other.
That's when I will lose all of my potential career prospects.
I have exactly. No. I mean, I heard your opinion. They are not so controversial as you think, or as I used to think. One final hypothetical question about your podcast, and this is the typical silly question I like to ask, and it's so silly, but I like it. you can travel in time, you can sit down with whoever you want.
Yes,
Who would be your ideal um, uh, guest?
guest. Um, that's a question that is very difficult to reply. To be frank, okay, there is one impossible because he's dead and we are late.
Yeah, no. But I mean, that's the point.
If I could mess around with a time machine,
Yeah.
I would rewind back to maybe 2019, 2018, and interview Antonio Scotado, which is one of my, I would say, is my intellectual father. It's very weird to explain it in this way, but I really feel like he's a very prominent figure when it comes to having built the personality as I am today. I do repeat often things that I read from him or he heard from him. So he's a very important person in my life, even though we have never spoken live. We have exchanged emails, and I sent him a bottle of whiskey one time, and yeah.
You did exchange email with him.
I did exchange emails
That's a
with him.
privilege.
Yes. Yes, because for I don't remember which year. My brother took all of my books of Antonio Scotado that I had in Madrid, in Spain, and he reached out to him, and he went to his house, and he had all of them signed. So when he
Your
came
brother.
back, my brother,
This is one of the most beautiful things that I
it is super
heard
nice.
anyone.
Yeah,
do.
so he went, and he had a beer with him, and I was at the beginning, I was shocked. Then I was in awe. I had a lot of admiration for my brother, and then I was envious, and then I was a little bit pissed because I asked him, "Do you bring him any gift, anything to thank him for the time?" Yeah, I brought him a box of chocolates. I'm like, "You fucking stupid! You have in front of you the most important philosopher of the 20th century and the founder of Amnesia, and you bring me a box of chocolates." So I went to the internet and I bought a bottle of Lagavulin, 16 years, and my brother gave me the address, and I sent it to him. I follow it up with an email saying, my brother did this. I say I am sending you this bottle. Thank you for the time you spent with my brother. It was nice. And he replied to me, if you wanna come and try, you better hurry up because I already had 3 shots, and it's fantastic. And from then on, we did exchange a few emails. Sometimes I thought I had a grand idea regarding politics or sociology, and I wrote to him, and he always replied, which was
Impressive.
amazing. He always replied. So yeah, it would be him. Out of people alive, I think John Lee would be a very good guest.
Of Hong Kong,
Worldwide. I think John Lee is in a very interesting position. I believe he's a man who has a lot of executive presence, and he has on one side an amazing ability to look friendly but be authoritarian at the same time, and that is a very amazing skill for a politician or a government official to have. And then from another point of view, I think he's in a very difficult situation because he has to cater to a city that thrives with being open and international, while being within the limits of policy of the of mainland China, which are totally opposite with the capitalist spirit of this city. And I would love to know his day to day. I would love to ask him personal questions about the difficulties he feels, the acidity in his stomach, or whether he has it or maybe he doesn't have
Do
it.
you think him as a politician would answer to your questions? No?
No, of course not. But I would. We are asking about dreams,
Okay.
so I would really love to. And if I ever get to do Mr. John Lee, if I ever get to interview you, my interest is not criticizing your policies, it's to finding more about the character. Because at the end of the day, when you learn a lot about a character, then you give context to whatever they do. And you can agree, you can disagree, but certainly you complete the information.
Yeah. That was very good. I have, I think, one last question, and then we can wrap it up.
All right. Go.
It's the end of the year.
Yes.
It's a special period. It's a period for recap. Doing some recap, summary of what happened in 2023. It's also, so this is two questions actually, and it's also like the moment that you start to think about 2024,
Yes.
the next solar year, what's going to happen. When you look back at 2023, what have been the best, the most, not necessarily the best, but the most impactful memories, and looking at 2024 instead, what are the memories that you want to create? What is the impact? What is the proposition that you have for yourself?
It is. I'm probably not going to be very accurate when it comes to this recapping exercise because, again, in a not glamorous way, my life is very intense. So in a year, a lot of things happen, and probably I will forget some of them. If I have to actually pinpoint one, probably is. One is difficult. Give me the chance to do 2 or 3. One of them is this podcast, hands down. I'm super happy. I'm super thankful to life, to you, to be able to put this forward. I think, for example, personal wise, I have been enjoying a lot the development of my baby daughter from 2 to 3. She's now a little person. She's very affectionate. And now I really have a lot of engagement with her, so I am enjoying big time. At the same time, it has been so those two are the net good things. Difficult is that I believe that we lived in an overcompensating period from COVID. For me, COVID finished September 2023, and we have been trying to do a little bit too much, to go a little bit beyond the limit of our capabilities. And me personally, and family-wise, we have made a lot of sacrifices that I'm probably not ready to do in 2024. For 2024, I want to have I want to continue to thrive. I want to be smarter on the way I work. I want to be more religious when it comes to respecting my private time, and allocating enough energy and time for the project of the podcast. The next year, the challenge is to actually to do 52 podcasts, which I know they're a lot, but we are going to make them. I'm 100% sure. The good thing is that now everyone is so tired after this year that everyone is going to take 2 weeks off in this Christmas, and I'm going to use them to calculate all of the operational challenges, and then start anew in the second week of the year.
These are beautiful propositions, and I think they wrap up very well this discussion. I'm very excited to be part of this for the next year. I can't wait to see where is this gonna go, and all the interesting conversation that we're gonna keep on having, and I'm really looking forward to our next discussion.
100%. And I want to, one of the things that I mentioned it to you directly, but I'm going to announce it, so it's impossible to erase. One of the things that I really want to do in this podcast is to have this special episode as a frequent basis. Clubs have resident DJs. I want to have my resident guest, and that's you. But that was the idea from the beginning. And I think these conversations are especially good because we know each other. The pace is super friendly, super relaxed. And it's a good exercise. Probably, my mom will watch the episode. But one day when we become famous, everyone will go back to these special conversations. No, I enjoyed a lot. I am extremely thankful. You gave me a big gift by choosing to spend some of your time with me. I feel really, really, it's
mutual.
It's really mutual. It was a game changer. So I really appreciate it. I don't want to leave this podcast without thanking my newly appointed vice producer or secondary producer, Katerina. Thank you very much. And to the rest of you who are listening to this podcast, yesterday I met Neil and he didn't complain about our sponsorship. So I will remind everyone who gets to this point to go to winenot.com.hk, and enjoy an amazing extra 5% discount on checkout with using the code LASTMEET. That is LASTMEET. Filippo, thank you very
Fernando,
much.
Thank you.
Any last words? Caterina, thank you very much. You've been an amazing producer. For those of you, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Get ready, subscribe. Next year will be full on. Let's go. Ciao ciao.
Ciao.
Oh, che bello.
Bella chiacchiera che siamo
Bella chiacchiera.